Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Hobby Dude 007 channel. Today we're going to pick back up on our scratch building a stock car chassis part 2. Let's get started. Well, after releasing part 1 of our chassis build, the channel reached a milestone. It kind of crept up on me. I kind of knew it was coming, but I just didn't know it was going to come that fast. But the channel reached 1,000 subscribers, and I wanted to say sincerely, face to face, thank you. You know, I'm having a blast doing this. I love to build, I love to share, and this has just been the greatest medium. I wish I'd have listened to my wife 3 years ago when she told me to do it. But it is fun, and I do appreciate the support that you're showing. And guys, for those of you who are watching and have not subscribed, please do. Not just this channel, but any channel that you watch, you know, give them a subscription. If you want to help a channel grow and support them, you do that by subscribing. And then hit that notification bell and leave a like, leave a comment. You know, this chassis build that we're doing right now, I had 2 emails and 1 comment in the comment sections from subscribers that wanted to know how I do this. So that's what we're looking at right now. So do leave comments too. Doesn't matter if it's good or bad. I read them all. I try to respond to them all. I am enjoying myself, and I'm just tickled to death to be able to share. And I support a lot of the other channels. I've learned a lot from a lot of the other guys too. And you know, as Abraham Lincoln said, never cared for a man that didn't learn something new every day. We all learn, and we learn from each other. Again, thank you so much for your support. Hopefully we'll be on for a long time. Thanks again, guys. So let's get to part 2 of this chassis. All right, guys. The first thing we want to do, we've got our basic chassis. Everything's dried up pretty good. Is we want to correct what we did the other day. You remember I showed you that we cut right here. Let me get a little closer here. Right here, 45 degrees. 45 degrees, 30 up front here, straight up, 30 degrees, 20 degrees. Actually, that's not correct. But we did it that way because it's quicker and it's easier. But now we need to correct that. Let me show you what I mean. Let's take this Revell Monogram Pontiac chassis here that I'm detailing right now, or trying to get detailed anyway. You notice that these cuts, if I can get in the light right, are not straight up, straight 30 degrees and 20 degrees. These are actually 10 degrees, 15 degrees, and back here, instead of being, let's see if I can get the light right here. There we go. Instead of being 45 straight up, you notice these are angled at half, so that would be 22.5 or 22.5 degrees. Of course, if somebody told me these cuts needed to be that when I made this, I would have pulled my hair out and went and jumped off a bridge. But there's an easy way to fix this. And as you see how these look, and by the way, these are the welds I was talking about on how I do this. This chassis is going to be like it's under construction. And we'll get into, well, the welds and that kind of stuff a little bit later. But how we're going to correct that on this one, since it's going to be in the raw and it's going to be in bare metal, and the welds will be showing too, we need to correct that. And the first thing we need to do is make sure that we can find where all our marks are. And it's really easy to fix, because honestly, where these are straight up right now, and I don't know if you can even see them because I've already worked and sanded on some of this, but they need to be from this corner here straight to this edge right here, and boom, 22.5 degrees. Just that simple. From this lower bend right where it starts here to right there, and as you can see, we've got our angle. So how we're going to do that is we're going to take just a little, this is a General brand ruler, metal ruler. You get these at Harbor Freight for nothing practically. I've probably got a drawer full of them. We're going to get right there in that bend, and we're going to go right to the top. I'm going to hold it nice and steady. I'm going to get my scribing tool, which I've got this little bitty X-Acto thing I've had for years. I'm going to use the back edge, and what I'm going to do is make 2 light passes. I'll make a third one just for the fun of it. Now, see there? Well, I can see it, but I don't know if you can. And we're going to do the same thing over here. Right there, from the bottom bend to right where that crook of the bend is up top side. 1, 2, 3. And when we do this, don't forget to do the inside as well. And our angles are going to be correct. Well, I guess if I can get my fingers to work with me. And again, on the inside, we're going to do the same thing. You know what? I'll do that one. I'll do the insides. I'll do one here, and then I'll do them off camera. But even up here, you're going to want to do that right there, too. And we have our correct 22.5 degree cuts. And you may remember, I'll tell you up front, we're going to do the same thing. Where this 30 degree is, we're going to go right to the bend, and we'll get a 15 degree cut. Just that simple. I'm off camera there, sorry. And the same thing with our 10 degree cut right there. Okay, now remember in part 1 I showed you there was a couple little round little pieces laying down in here, and I told you those, don't worry about those are going to go away. Well, I'm going to show you how those went away. This is a piece of evergreen rod that is the smallest I think they make, and I use this as a filler. Now yes, I left one open where you could see it, and well, I'm hoping you can see it right here. I don't know if I can get a shadow, but when I slide this across, see how it stops in the little gully right there that's straight up? I can just slide this right down and it stops right there. Up, there's that little gully there. Well, that gully is 30 degrees, and that's going to show up. Even if I make this cut or this scribe at 15 degrees, that is still going to show up. So if you remember, what I did was I took, and I don't think I showed you this part, but cut a piece of that tiny, and I'm sorry, I don't remember what size this one is. I got a pack somewhere. I just don't know where it is right off. But what I'm going to do is take my X-Acto, and I'm going to put just a little bit, and we're using Tamiya's extra thin cement, down in that. And then I'm going to take, and I'm going to lay that little piece that I just cut right in there. So as you can see, that little piece is in that little valley there. And I'm going to saturate that with some more of the welding agent there. And by the way, any good glue is a welding agent. I like the testers, which you saw me using. I like the Tamiya. Super glue is the Zap, the Duro, Loctite gel. I like a lot of these things. It's just, some of them, depends on the purpose. Photo etch, I really like using clear paint, or there's a lot of different things you can use. Now, but as you use a welding agent like the Tamiya Extra Thin, it softens the plastic, and as it dries, it's literally like welding it. It melts it together, it welds it together. So I've got an old pair of tweezers here, and what I'm going to do now that that is kind of soft, and I've done this with a lot of these joints to cover that up. That's why back here you don't feel or even see well, if I can keep it still, you can't feel or even see any of those creases other than what we rescribed back there. But what I'm going to do is I've got that plastic softened up right there. And like I said, I could use putty, but then I'm waiting to dry and all that kind of stuff too. But you see that? I'm hoping you can see that. I'm going to take this, lay it right over the top of it, and I'm just going to squeeze it nice and flat. And as you can see, I've got a nice flat area there. So, and it almost looks like a weld, even though it's at the wrong degree. And you can do this a couple of times if the glue dries out on you a little bit more than you want it to. But look at that. I've filled in that gap, and that will be dry because of what we just did. Well, it's dry to the touch now. And what I'll do is I'll sand that, and then I'll rescribe our angle. And just that easy. Now this one I've already done, and you can't even feel it. It's nice and smooth like it's one piece. This one needs a little more sanding, and I'm not going to bore you with sitting here and sanding and all that kind of stuff, but we'll come back and look at that. And when we get that done, and the other thing I do is usually put one more little bit of glue on that so it just kind of smooths it around a little bit. We'll let that cure. Then I'll sand that, and then we're going to get into building the fuel cell. In fact, let's go ahead and talk about the fuel cell real quick. You know what? I'm going to give that one more squeeze. One more good squeeze. There we go. So that just acted kind of like a putty, but it's made of the same material, so it's going to blend a lot easier too. Okay, fuel cell. If you remember from the other one, and a lot of from an older era, and I like that stuff too, this is your configuration. We can take a look at, hold on just a second, whether it's the Banjo or the Laughlin. A lot of them had the 2-strap, they had the 3-strap. A lot of the ones that we ran had the 3. Then they've got the lower lining down in there too that the fuel cell sits in. But you got a lot of options here. Now I'm going to do this one the way I did this one, the 3-strap. You can do the 2, the 3, however you want to. I like the 3 because, like I said, our team, that's what we had on ours. But if you've never used Shapeways, which is a resin 3D printing company, they make this 24th scale, and it's a 5-piece. Oh, let me show you this real quick. You see how this comes in a couple of pieces? You got the lower, the upper, and then the fuel cell, and then you've got the cover. But watch this. What the scale we used here to build that, look at that. Drops right in there, just like it was made for it. So you can order one of these. They're like 16 bucks, and then there's some shipping, of course. But it's not very much. And man, this stuff came really quick. There's your lower section. Your upper, this is again a more modern, and then the fuel cell, and it also comes with the fuel cell cap. But if you wanted to, you could take this. Now this is one of those things you would have to super glue because this is resin. It's not plastic. It's not going to weld good down there. But there you go. So you've got the lower this way, and let's see if I can. I don't know if I can get it up without. Yeah, there you go. So looks really good, really to scale, and the upper, same thing. Fits right on. Of course, you've got to have the fuel cell in there first. So, well, it's a tight fit. I would need to sand out a little down here. The sides are fine, or a little back here. It's close. Look at that, it'll drop right in on one. Well, almost. But as you can see, oh, that's so close. But that's no big deal. All we got to do is just do some sanding down here, and it would drop in there. But because this is just a basic chassis that's going to be on a stand or on the jack stands, I'm probably just going to have that bottom piece on it. But I did want to share this with you. Shapeways 3D printing, and like I said, it's really cool. And I've got this painted in raw steel, so it looks like it's just been built. I don't know if you can see the welds, but I painted the welds on there, so it looks like it's just freshly been built. And same thing along the edges of the fuel cell itself. But that's another option if you're doing a more modern chassis. And now, I went ahead and pre-cut, and I cheated a little bit. I took the measurements off of this chassis because I know the depth's correct, and I also used the Shapeways piece to make these pieces, and I went ahead and pre-cut those. And I've got the pieces that are going to be going right here, here, and here. And by the way, these are a 1/4 inch apart. 1/4 inch from here, boom, 1/4 inch to the center, 1/4 inch out, or 1/4 inch from center here. So that way they're going to be evened up. And then you notice these are a little longer. Well, if I can keep them in frame, these are longer than these, and these are going to be welded in lengthwise back here, same dimensions. But you'll notice on the real cars too, while these were welded to the edges of the front of this brace, you notice back here they're actually lengthwise. I hope you can see that. Lengthwise, they're the full length of the chassis here. So, and then the 3 bars that cross, I make a little bit longer deliberately. That way I have room to adjust and cut them. You see, it's just a tick long, and then I'll be able to cut that and even it up on both sides. So, tell you what, I'm going to get this glued up real quick. Now that you know how I'm going to do it, I'll get that done real quick, and I'll be right back. Okay, so here is our fuel cell cage. You see how those came right down here, hooked right in, these right to the edge, and look pretty good. We'll do a little finish sanding in a couple of spots, but overall we look pretty good. And by the way, what I did not tell you is that is evergreen number 132, 30 thousandths by 40 thousandths. And that's what's comprised of our fuel cell cage. And I think that turned out pretty well. Now, let's go to the spring buckets. Now, there's a couple of different ways and angles. As you remember, I did the full round spring buckets for the front here. And I did that also on my Fab Shop car that I'm doing like it's under construction. Did the full ones with the full bolts instead of the newer ones that have the round threaded rod or threaded tube. And as you see here, and I don't know, I'm going to try to get up close, the A-arm retainers, if you can see them right here, just on the back of that. There we go. You got the holes where the A-arms attach. Well, sorry about that. Right here, and you can see it on the other side. I don't know, the camera's not going to focus, and I don't have the light, I don't think. Right here. And we'll get into how to do that too, but you can see the spring buckets. You can see the welds where I've got the bucket there on that. Or you can do it more like what actually comes on the Revell Monogram chassis, or the Salvino now. See where it's a little blunt? You've got the jack screw sticking up right there, and it's a little flatter on the end. You can do that too. We had the full round ones, but I had seen them both ways. You can block that off because there is a retainer that sits up in here that actually holds that spring in place. And So how I'm going to do the spring buckets is pretty simple. I told you in part one that you're going to need a hole punch. And we can modify these into the flatter ones if you want to do that. This is a piece of, I think this one is evergreen. Well, it may be plastruck, but it's just sheet plastic. And this one I'm pretty sure is 20 thousandths. And it doesn't matter who the manufacturer is on just your flat steering. And yeah, that's 20 thousandths thickness. And that's what we're going to use to make our spring buckets. So what we're going to do is I'm going to need 2 for the rear and 2 for the front. And I may modify those for the front. So that's always a headache right there. And go back down right there. And these, I'll show you. And honestly, guys, I usually make an extra one in case I drill it wrong, but this is not that big a thing. All right, and we'll dump those out here. And as you can see, now we have our spring buckets. They're a little rough on the edges. That's easily fixed here in a minute. And what we're going to do is, and I'll show you the size of hex nuts and stuff that the old school stuff that will mount here for the jack screws, and on the bottom as well as up here. Now you can take these, and you could, if you're doing the full spring bucket, you could just glue that, and we're going to measure to make sure it's in the right place, but you could put that there, and then you can cut that front edge off, but you have your spring bucket that or the start of it there, so it's really no big deal. And for the lower retainer part, what I usually use is a real piece of aluminum. And as you can see, and I'll get you the size of this one, that lays right on top of it, and I'll shave a piece off all the way around, and we'll have us a spring bucket. Actually, I think I had the wrong size there. There we go, that's the one. And here, let me see if I can get a size on this real quick. I want to say it's 1/4 inch, I think. Yeah, it's 1/4 inch. And you know, you don't have to use the aluminum. You can use plastic, so it's no big deal. But you're just going to need to shave a little bit off that has that, like on my Fab Shop car, you see the little bucket down there, for the spring to set up in, if you do the old school one anyway. And it depends on the team too. So you do need to do the fun part, and that's research. Having a lighting issue. Ooh. Okay. I've got 2 more things I need to get out to show you. You know the part we were just talking about for the A-frames up here? I need to cut a couple pieces for that real quick, and I'm going to show you how we're going to make those. So stick around. Okay, guys, so now we're going to make our A-frame brackets, and these are a 1/4 inch cut long as far as the lengthwise goes. And this is, by the way, 20 thousandths by 188. It's evergreen number 128. And I'm going to show you what we're going to do here with our forceps. Let me get these things together. We're going to make 2 at one time, 1 for each side. I'm going to make sure we've got them evenly lined up. And then we're going to get them clamped together. I made them oversized for a reason. And we're going to take our Dremel on a low speed, which you can barely hear that. And what we're going to do, let me get my Optivisor on here so I can see what I'm doing. And we're going to just lightly make an indentation . And we want it kind of, let me clean this up a little bit and I'll show you. Toward the front, it needs to be a little bit higher. So, it's not like it needs to be dead even in the center. And we're getting there. Alright, that looks like that is going to be it. And I'll show you what we're doing here in just a second. Yep, see this side, the front side is going to be a little bit, see how that looks like it's a little bit higher? That's what we're looking for there. Let's trim this excess away on both sides. Now the next thing we want to do is kind of round these off a little bit. So let's take our sandpaper, and I'm just going to use some, I think this is, I think it's 320, I think it is, it's what it feels like. Isn't that awful when you've done something so long you kind of know what it feels like? Going to round that off a little bit. And same with the front. Round that off. A little bit more. All right, I'm going to drill our holes, pilot holes here and here, and then I'm going to cut it off at the right height, and we'll be right back. Okay, before we add our spring bucket retainers, I do want to let these A-arm brackets kind of dry, as we were saying, and let's go on and get to these truck arm mounts. We're going to do the same thing here. We're going to stack these both sizes together where they're even on one end, and sorry for the awkward silence there for a minute. We're going to mount those in here like this. Now this time we're going to do something a little bit differently. Instead of shaping it, I want us to go ahead and get our hole drill through here first. So I'm going to start with that number 74 drill bit that I already had in here. And have I got everything straight? Not quite. Let's do that again because they're, there we go, and got it locked down. Okay, now we're going to start our pilot hole because all of them are going to be the same, and we're going to start with that 74 bit, which is not quite what I need. I need it to be a little bit bigger than that, but we're going to, and I'm using my pin vise to do this the first go round anyway. Let's see here, and then we're going to go to a bigger bit because that hole requires for those truck arms a larger diameter bolt. So to better represent that, we'll take that 74 out. And by the way, these drill bits that are number 80 through number 161, you can get, I got these on Amazon. I think I like 3 sets were some ridiculously low price. Let's go with a number, let's say 69. Let's go to 67. And we want it to look in scale. We're trying to make everything as in scale as possible. So we're going to make this hole a little bit bigger. And be careful when you're doing this because when that goes through, it will go through your finger. And I know that because I have done that more than I should. So I'm going to hold it this way now. So it'll go between my fingers. There we go. Clean up any edges there that are on the outsides. Okay. Let's put our number 68 back. I try to use a 72 or 74, something like that, for my pilot holes pretty consistently. And I don't use a motor tool to drill out a lot of this stuff. I had many years ago a Dremel that had, I guess, a higher speed. And it actually melted some spots. It was just at such a high speed. And I've got a really low speed Dremel now, but still, I just kind of I've gotten so used to doing it with the pin vise that's pretty much what I use. And it doesn't take any really extra length of time to cut through these things, because these things are pretty sharp. Okay, now from here on, just like with these, we need to round off these corners again. So I'm going to start. I could use the Dremel, but I'm just going to start by knocking these down. And I've got all 4 of them in there at once, remember, so they're going to be the same. And then we'll round it off a little bit more when we get over to that side. And then, of course, we've got to notch the back where it hooks into the kind of cross member there in the middle. And we're going to trim these down quite a bit, too. Now we can start rounding a little bit. And this sanding stick I'm using, by the way, is one of the Stevens sanding sticks, and I think this one is like a 320. It's pretty rough. And then I've got a couple of lighter grits that I'll be using when I start smoothing some of this out. But and then these will be notched, of course. And as you see, this is coming right along. We'll round off that other side, even it up, and then we'll come back and take a look at how we're going to notch it. We've made a couple of our little truck arm hangers, and as you see, this is what they look like. I've got them notched a little bit, and I wanted to show you how I'm cutting the notch in there. These are the short ones. You notice on here you got the outer ones are short, and then the inboard are a little longer. So that's why the other ones are a little longer. But I want to show you how I'm doing that and then cleaning them up. And that is, first of all, the width of our inside here is 40 thousandths. So, and we know that our razor saw is like 10 thousandths. The X-Acto is about 21 thousandths. So we needed something 40 thousandths. So I got my cutting wheel on the absolute lowest speed, and as you can, if I can get to where I can measure it, as you can see, it's about 39 thousandths. So it's going to fit in there. It's going to make a little bit of a cut there that'll work. So what we want to do, and as you can see, I've rounded off the other ends. I actually just chopped those. I'll round those off when I put them in there. And I'm only going to clip this on right to the eyelet. And then we're going to go in on the lowest, again, the lowest speed, which I don't even know if you can hear the thing running. Oops. But I'm going to come in right in the center. Nice and slow. And right about there. Whoa! I'll take it off, get our X-Acto, clean it up a little bit. And of course, I'll run this piece of sandpaper over it too. And as you can see, that just cleaned up really nicely. All right. And we'll do one more, and then we'll get them glued on, mounted up, and I'll show you how we're going to do that here in a sec too. Once again, using our stock lower section here of the frame, we're going to use this as a guideline. And now the big thing is, notice right here, the truck arms or trailing arms run parallel to that frame brace. So that's the way we're going to need to line these up, is like that. So let's try it. In the last two pictures, you saw the truck arm mounts roughed in anyway. Well, since then, I've narrowed these down and I've gone ahead and rounded them again so they look consistent with each other. As you can see here, the holes drilled for it, the bolts to go through. Looks really good. I also went ahead and added the this is a front steer car, so I added the steering box mount up here, drilled the holes for it and all too, if you can see that. There's a lot of little doodads like that you can add to these, and I'll show them to you. A lot of short track cars, they weren't necessary. Some of the big cars, they were. And on our truck arms, I want to take our stock piece here a minute, and I'll lay that over that. And as you can see, it is the right size. And well, if I can get it to be still. And what I want to do is show you, there we go. If we turn it this way, you see the pegs there where the rear end will be mounted. And as you can see, that's about dead center. So the length of the chassis, of course, when you're using this and the kit chassis as a template, they kind of should go together. But it looks really good. Guys, we're running really long on the video. Again, I didn't intend for the first one or this one to be quite this long, but I don't want you to lose out on anything either. I'm going to hold off till part 3 to mount the spring buckets. In the rear, it's just the jack screws. It's no big deal. And that'll be it. And then we're going to do some priming, painting, and then I'll show you how I do my welds, and we're going to have this puppy finished up. There's one more thing I do want to show that it will ask, hopefully it'll answer a question. Stick around a minute. In the comments of part 1, if I understood the question correctly, they wanted to know how the chassis lined up or fit to the body. So I went ahead and mocked, this is the flat nose Monte Carlo, mocked it up, and as you see here in the front, where the A-arms are, it lines right up to the center. Now the important thing is you can do that by just moving it back and forth, but you got to go to the back and make sure, and remember where that rear axle was going to be almost in the center here. And let me get where you can see it. So it's going to be right about there. So we're looking really good. From the back, you can see where the fuel cell, I know I'm kind of close here, but where the fuel cell sits down in there. And of course, when you've got the sheet metal in this, it would be mounted right up in there. And of course, you've got the sheet metal and the mounts that stick up right here into the body. So I'm hoping that answered the question, if I understood it correctly anyway. But as you can see, and again, using that stock chassis as a template, it should be pretty close anyway. Okay, guys, if you enjoyed it, hit subscribe, give me a thumbs up, and leave a comment. Any comments are greatly appreciated. Have a great one, and we'll see you in part 3, and we'll finish it up.